What's up, guys? Hey, I've had some thoughts that have been really kind of burning in my spirit today, just with all the negativity that you can find on every channel that you decide to flip to. Wanted to share some things from my heart. I'm going to kind of, my eyes will be back and forth because I'm going to read some of it. I kind of created a script to work from just to kind of stay on point and kind of go with the flow here. So I wanted to provide some hope, some light in light of a lot of negativity. And I will say from the outset that the things I'm going to be sharing, I'll be pulling from Bible verses. I'm not going to go into a lot of depth as far as hermeneutical, philosophical, theological deep dives, anything like that. There's a time and place for that. But I feel like for tonight, want to fuse some of what I've studied. Most people that know me know that I went to seminary, and so I've done a lot of study of the Bible and the history and things like that. So I'm pulling from that, but I also want to add some heartfelt thoughts, and hopefully my words will be infused with God's Spirit and His presence as well, because if anything right now, we need to definitely be embracing light and embracing God in this time, because I see what I see as, without Him, all the rational work I could do and study that I could do wouldn't even matter. We've had centuries and millennia of rational debate and philosophical indoctrination that we talk in circles, and we've not addressed the hard issues that are happening in the world. Otherwise, a lot of this would have already gone away, already been dealt with. But here we are. And so, I just want to make a point that, we're not dealing with outside issues here. We're dealing with heart issues. Until the heart's made right, and mended, healed, there's not going to be any viable change on the outside. We can set up programs, and we can set up funds and funding things and GoFundMe pages and all this stuff, but they're Band-Aids on something that requires surgery, literally open heart surgery, both physically and spiritually speaking. I mean, there are people hurting all over the world today. They're scared, they're misinformed, they're frustrated, they're angry, and that's just on the surface. And so I want to offer some hope here. So with that being said, here we go. In the book of John in the New Testament, there are several points where Jesus makes what are referenced in biblical studies and devotional writings as I am statements. They point out 7 that I will address here in the next few moments, but I want to start with a very important 8th one. Most oftentimes doesn't get mentioned. And so where I'm going to start is in John 18. Please feel free to, if you have a Bible, to go and read those in your time, in your free time. By all means, I encourage you to study. You can never really study that book enough. There's a reason why it's the best-selling book on the planet still. But in John 18, we're in the middle of the passage where Jesus has been praying in the Garden of Gethsemane and about his mission on this earth. He's about to go to the cross, and he's about to die for humanity. Most people have heard the story if they've been in Sunday school. The religious establishment had sent a mob and Roman soldiers to come and collect Jesus. And when they approached him, Jesus asked, "Who are you looking for?" And they said, "Jesus of Nazareth." And he responded, "I am he." And the writer of John tells us that when the mob heard this, they took a step back and fell to their knees. Why? Because there was power, very strong spiritual power that went forth from Jesus when he used that term. You see, there's a historical reference here. When God met Moses on the Mount Sinai in the Old Testament, and you can read this in Exodus, he gave him his name, and he used 4 consonants in the Old Hebrew text, and they are the what are referred to as the breathing consonants in the Hebrew language. You can read it as Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey, so YHWH basically for English. You probably have seen it in Yahweh or Jehovah. There are explanations to all those particular names, and I'm not going to go into that now because it's not the time or place. But my point is here, this phrase, I am He, when Jesus makes the reference, he immediately established, 1, his connection to God, which he'd been making all through the book of John. And 2, something that a lot of people don't talk about, I think he was making a statement as well to the demonic forces that were around and in the garden, because that was a very dark night. Jesus was about to take on the enemy of our souls in a fight that the whole world hung on. And so there was a lot going on there that was beyond the physical eye. And so he made the statement that he had more than enough power to accomplish his mission in any way he saw fit. And yet, in spite of that, as he prayed just before in the earlier passage, he submitted to the bigger picture and to God's plan. And of course, you know the rest. He was beaten, he was crucified, and then rose on the 3rd day. So to set the tone for these thoughts, this 8th I am statement is important because Jesus establishes himself as divinity. Anyone that was Jewish knew exactly what Jesus was saying. In fact, it gets turned around on him later, which the Pharisees were notorious for doing. Sound familiar? Everything you say gets flipped on you this day and age? Maybe we'll go into that at another point. But for the rest of these, I'm going to jump around a little bit in the book of John. The next 2 kind of work together, and because they're both within the same passage or the same parable that Jesus is discussing in John 10. In verses 7 and 9, Jesus refers to himself as the gate. Some passages or some translations you might see gateway, some you might see door. In the same passage, Jesus also refers to himself as the good shepherd in verses 11 and 14. These 2 statements work together, as in this passage, Jesus refers to a sheepfold. In that era, a sheepfold was typically a circular wall, and it only had 1 doorway. Sometimes there was a gate, but most often the shepherd would actually sleep in the doorway and function as the gate. So it kept out wolves, predators, thieves, anything like that. And Jesus actually makes reference in this passage, that thieves want to come in and kind of climb over the wall and then cause problems for the sheep and for those that are in what's inside the sheepfold. And he wanted to let us know here that he is our guide, he's our protector. Evil forces, human and spiritual, want to sneak over that wall, and instead of coming through the door, they want to cause trouble. And of course, the verse that a lot of people know in the church world, that the enemy comes in to seek, to kill, and destroy. Jesus said, however, not only will he protect us, but he also came to give us life and give it to us in abundance. He works for our highest good. And even though we may go through the valley of the shadow of death, aka tough times, to reference Psalms 23, we may go through hell on earth. But he said, you don't have to fear it. He goes, I am the shepherd and I'm with you. I'm guiding you. I'm directing you to a higher and a better way, to be the best version of yourself and to be a positive influence in this world. So point 1, if you find yourself feeling unsafe, under attack, alone, I'm here to tell you you're not. Jesus is there. The Good Shepherd has your back, and he's protecting you from things you probably can't even see unless you have the ability and have opened yourself up enough to see the spiritual realm as well as the physical. And if you can't, that's not a judgment. That just some people can, and some people have not taken the time to open themselves up to that. But the point is here, Jesus loves you, and he wants the best for you. So after that, I want to then jump to John 15, where Jesus refers to himself as the vine. He tells his disciples that I am the vine and you are the branches. He then refers to God the Father as the vineyard caretaker, who prunes fruitful branches to make them more fruitful. and he carefully cuts away the dead branches to make room for more healthy branches. Jesus, of course, is talking here about the power of connection. We are humans, and we are social beings. We thrive on connection. That's how we were made. If you don't believe in creation, okay, that's fine. But if you look in every single animal in the animal kingdom, if you want to, come from the evolution side of things, most animals also work off connection. There's no loners, with the exception of a few species. So to be social is normal. It's not only human, it's prevalent in the world. And so because we thrive on this, it's the lack of connection why this time has been so tough on people. It's not COVID that's causing as much damage here as it is the isolation. I'm seeing articles and stories of a rise in mental health issues, a rise in suicide. I watched a dad weep openly on Facebook the other day because his son hung himself. And it was tragic. And it was because of being isolated. He just didn't know how to handle it anymore. And it was, my heart broke. As a father myself, I can't even imagine losing my son. That would crush me. And so because of all of this, Jesus is here to remind you, he's the source of connection. He connects us to the Father to bring us to communion with the divine and with light. And there's power and connection and peace in that. The divine wishes to be one with us, and Scripture mentions this in so many different places. And I'm not going to go into them all now because that would be a pretty long study. But my point again is, if you're feeling alone, if you're feeling disconnected, if you're feeling overwhelmed and isolated, I want to give you hope. Jesus is there. The Bible tells us that he's as close as the air we breathe. And he wants to commune with you. He said, I stand at the door and then I knock. All you got to do is open it. And I'll come in and be with you. To give you that connection, to set you free from the isolation. The next one I want to move to is John 14. In this same talk where he is referred to himself in 15 as the vine and the disciples being the branches, in chapter 14, he's talking to his disciples about his ascension and his going back to heaven after the cross. And he said, I go to make a place for you. And of course, the disciples are a little thick-headed. They're confused, and they're like, okay, we don't know where you're going. So how will we know to get there? And Jesus responds simply, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Nobody comes to the Father but by me. And what he's saying here is he is again establishing his connection to God. The Jews all knew the Jehovah of the Old Testament. The Pharisees and rabbis had taught them this for years. However, Jesus is saying the way you know and come to God is not through the old sacrificial system or any other body of theology. You come to God through me. I'm the one that will give you the connection you need. I'm the one that will connect you to the divine. He's pointing out that he wishes to be one with us, but you just can't come however you feel like it to God. He's an awesome entity, and while he welcomes us in, there's a method. I mean, it works for everything that we do. If you want to lose weight, there's a way to do it. You can't just do it any way you like. You can't take a pill and sit on the couch and continue to eat potato chips. That's not how it works. So there's a method and there's a way, and Jesus is that way. The way to God is by acknowledging the truth, that Jesus is the way. He's again pointing out that he wishes to be one with us, but we can't just come to him however and whenever we feel like it. He's waiting, but it's his way. It's not ours. And that's why I'm kind of talking in circles here for a second there. But he established the way to God by his work on the cross. His death and resurrection opens a straight path for God, to God, and one that's founded in truth and life. And that's why he can say, I'm the way, the truth, and the life. My point, If you're feeling the need for more to life, more to this existence, Jesus is here to remind you he is that way and that truth and that life. He's the source to more. There's more to this life than living and dying, paying your bills, and just eking out a mere existence. I want to invite you to come to Jesus, and he'll show you the way to way more. Continuing on in that vein, I want to go to our next statement. It's in John 8. To set the stage, in the first part of the chapter, the Pharisees bring a woman to Jesus who is, quote-unquote, caught in the act of adultery. They point out that the law of Moses commanded that she be stoned for her sin, and they're creating a huge scene. And on a side note, I always find this story ironic. First of all, if you really go back and you read the Old Testament, the man that was caught in that same act of adultery was never brought forward, because obviously it takes two to tango. Secondly, the Pharisees that quote-unquote caught the woman would have also been equally guilty because they looked on, to quote the Old Testament, they looked upon both the man and the woman's nakedness. Every single aspect of this for the woman, the man, and the Pharisees that quote-unquote caught them was punishable by stoning. So there was nobody innocent in this whole picture. Does this sound familiar? Using circular reasoning to catch people and doing things? I digress. Sorry. But they continue to make noise, and they're fussing and they're fuming, and Jesus draws in the dirt for a few minutes. And then when it seems to reach a climax, he stands up and he replies, "He is without sin, cast the first stone." And every one of them had to walk away because they knew they were equally guilty. From that end of that story, he then goes on to say, "I'm the light of the world. Those who embrace me will be full of life-giving light and will never walk in darkness." To me, this is an amazing statement. We are living in dark times right now. Folks are being shamed for wearing a mask. Some are being shamed for not wearing one. Dark forces at work to quietly steal away our freedoms as Americans and to slowly destroy this country. It's full of lies and deceit, pedophilia, and not to mention any other thing, at the highest levels. And I've mentioned in another video about the dark principalities that run America right now on the spiritual level. And they consist primarily of lying, deceit, and greed. There's probably more at work, but they're lesser. But those are the big three. You can go back and reference a video that's in my IG stuff for that info. But this is a serious time. But Jesus reminds us that in this intense darkness, He is the light of the world. If we commune with Him and walk with Him, we'll be in the light. He said, "Work with me and we'll dispel the darkness." He goes, "I will shine the truth on all this darkness and you'll see everything clearly. Embrace my light and watch me uncover the lies and the deceit and the falseness that you see today. And underneath everything, you're like, something's just not right there." Yeah, Jesus can help kind of clarify for you. He's amazing like that. He said, "My light will clarify it all." Our next statement is in John 6. Earlier in that chapter, Jesus had fed 5,000 men, plus women and children. So we don't fully know just how many there were there. But if you figure on average a couple of kids per man and a wife, you're talking at least 20,000 people. I mean, there's a lot of stories and theories on how many were there. But the point is, he fed them all with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. Not only were they fed, but then they came around later wanting more miracles. As if that wasn't a sign enough, they asked him for another sign, like in the Old Testament, so they could believe that he was God. And so they made reference to where God fed the children of Israel in the wilderness, and God fed them manna from heaven. And Jesus responds in verse 35, and he says, "I am the bread of life." So then again, now he's also making yet another connection to the God of the Old Testament, somebody they clearly understood. And he said, "If you come to me and commune with me, you'll never be hungry or thirsty." So while he doesn't make a direct reference and says, "I'm the water of life," he is pointing that out as well, and even though it's indirectly. And I find that interesting too. Of course, folks thought he was talking about literally, but he was referring to satisfying not only their physical needs, but their spiritual needs. See, each of us were born with a God-shaped hole, as the song goes. And that creates a hunger and a thirst for within us to be unified with the divine, to be unified with God. Jesus again establishes his connection to God by pointing out that he can provide that satisfaction and provide that connection for us to the divine. We won't be hungry or thirsty because we're connected to the source itself, himself or herself. God's God. I think he's kind of beyond gender at this point, but whichever makes you more comfortable. Excuse me. My point again is, if you feel hungry and thirsty for more in your life, if things have not turned out the way you thought they would or should, come to Jesus. He will satisfy your hunger. He will connect you to the divine, and you'll find a satisfaction like you've never experienced before. And then finally, our last statement is in John 11. In this story, Jesus had a very dear friend named Lazarus who had fallen ill. And Jesus was busy in a neighboring city, and so he didn't come right away. And that illness actually turned fatal. And after he had passed, Jesus, kind of out of the blue, said, "Hey, we need to go see Lazarus." He wept as he made his way to that hometown in Bethany. And there's a part of me that always wondered why he wept at this point. He already knew that he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. So was he weeping in empathy with Mary and Martha, his sisters? Because, obviously, the weeping process was very, very vocal. Not everything was quiet and calm the way we are today. The grieving process was an event, really, in that culture. Or was Jesus weeping due to the level of unbelief in the crowds? Food for thought. I always wonder about little things like this. But one of Lazarus' sisters, Martha, had made her way to Jesus and responded, if you had just gotten here earlier, I know you could have healed him and he wouldn't have even had to have died. So there's faith there to work with. And Jesus responds to Martha that Lazarus is going to live again. And she's like, well, yeah, I know on resurrection day, in that final day when we were all raised to go to heaven, Jesus goes, no, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I am the resurrection and life. This isn't a matter of waiting for some pie in the sky. It's right here, right now. If anyone believes in me, he said, even though he dies, he'll live again. And he was talking both physically and spiritually here, because the book of John deals a lot with duality. So you see Jesus touch on light and dark here and in heaven. There's a constant yin and yang, however you choose to look at it. But it's that whole duality thing, that there's two sides to the coin. And so as the story proceeds, Lazarus is raised from the dead, and then his point remains, I am the resurrection. I am the life. What does that mean for you today? Well, if you're feeling like you've had no hope, that everything in your life, except the breath you breathe, has died, everything's in shambles, I'm here to give you some good news. Jesus is here as the resurrection and the life. He can take what is dead in your life and he can bring it back. Broken hearts can be healed. Broken homes can be mended. He brings life to those things that we break and we damage. He can take what is dead, failed marriages, mental health issues, all those things that cause you pain and grief. He can make it whole again. Damaged finances, just plain havoc in our lives due to the pandemic. He can resurrect it. He can make it new. You just got to believe he can. So with that, again, these are the I am statements. I hope that these words have brought you some hope. If you're lacking anything in life, the point of this message is that Jesus can be what you need. You may be watching this and hurting and alone, and Jesus is saying, I got you, man. I got you, girl. You may be hungry for more in your life. Jesus is saying, I got you. You may be in anguish because your family is broken, and there's a serious need for love and healing, a mending of hearts and spirits. Yep, he's still saying, I got you. He is the answer. He is your bread. He is your life, your protection, your light. You just have to give him the chance. Lord, I pray for everyone that listens to these words, that your light would come and that you would make yourself real to them. Let these words touch their hearts and bring them hope in this dark time. Lord, if these words resonate with them, I pray that they would reach out to you or reach out to me and we can talk together. Lord, if they completely dismiss these words, I pray that they would act as seeds and they would take root for another time. You simply told me to sow the seed. Thanks for giving me this chance to share love and light and to touch each and every person that hears this. In Jesus' name, amen. Hope this was good. I know I probably rambled. That's why I typed it in order to kind of keep it on point. But I love you guys. Praying for the best for you. Have a great night.